Hello again. This is Steve Quarles and Jana Valakovic. We're here again to talk to you today about the area under your eave. This is the area when you walk outside your front door and you look up and you see the part where your roof overhangs your siding. That's your under eave area. We're going to talk about how it's vulnerable, kind of designs you can have, and things you can do to protect that part of your house. So there's two basic kinds of design. There's what's called a soffitted eave. This is what you see on the left. This is when you look up, there's sort of a horizontal piece that connects the exterior wall to the edge of your roof. Sometimes there's a vent in there and sometimes there's not. In this case, you can see the vent that's located pretty close to the exterior wall. So this is called a soffitted eave. Sometimes it's called a boxed-in eave. The point is, when you look up, you don't see rafter tails and blocking as you do with an open eave design that you see on the right-hand side picture. So here you can see the rafters that would support your roof and the member between the rafters, so that's called blocking. And sometimes you can have vents in this blocking also. In this particular picture, you see that the vent takes up the entire part of that between rafter space. Sometimes it's just little circles with vents in them. Sometimes you have bigger vents, but these are the two basic kinds of design for this under eave area.
And the venting there is meant specifically to allow cool air to enter into the attic. And that's part of your circulation system, which moves the moisture out of your attic and then also takes some of the heat load away. So those vents are important. Though they do have some particular vulnerabilities when it comes to fire.
That's right. That's a good point there, Jana. Yeah, these are part of your moisture management and temperature control system for your attic space. We've talked about vents before, and you can have vents in your crawl space. It's all in the crawl space. It's all about moisture. There is a temperature function with your attic vents, and as Jana said, you're going to have sort of two sets of these vents. You're going to have the under eave ones, which are the inlet air, where air comes in, and then you have vents on top of your roof or in the end of your roof, like in a gable vent. That's where air leaves. That's the exiting air part. And they can be vulnerable. Research has shown that this open eave design is more vulnerable to ember entry through vents and also more vulnerable should flames get up in that area. These area between the rafters, it can trap heat. You can have much quicker ignition should heat get up in this area and trap compared to the soffitted eave. So from both a flame and ember perspective, this soffitted eave design is better. Another thing that makes open eave designs more vulnerable is that you can have more small openings between where the blocking and the rafters meet. And I've incorporated a couple of yellow arrows in both of these right-hand and left-hand pictures showing where these gaps can occur. So embers can enter into the attic space through these places, and they can also just accumulate in those spaces, potentially igniting the wooden members in these areas. So a solution here, there's a couple of solutions. The quicker or easier solution is just to make sure you seal these areas with a high-grade caulk. This will sort of minimize a chance for embers to accumulate there and for them to penetrate into the attic space. And the other one is just to enclose the under eave area, so make it be a soffitted eave. This is a heavier lift. You typically would need a contractor unless you're particularly handy about these things. So it would be more money. The cheaper way to do it would be just to make sure you seal these areas, and particularly if you have combustible siding, to convert those vents that you see in these circular vents, these freeze block vents, from just screen to the ember and flame resistant types that are now available in California. And this is a picture from the IBHS Research Center that basically shows how vulnerable this under eave area can be. This particular picture is at the end of the building, but the same would be true for whether it be on the the front of your house or the end of your house. And here we have ignition from embers of wood mulch close to the house, ignition of combustible siding, and then that flame spread vertically upwards and laterally into this under eave area. And once the flame reached there, it quickly entered into the attic space, pointing to the vulnerability of this area to flames should it enter. And you can also see that it entered into the through the vent in the gable end area. So in these situations where you have combustible siding, making sure that your under eave area and your vents are as resistant to flame entry as possible is really an important part of having a more fire resistant or ember ignition resistant home.
Can you help me understand in that picture? So the flames really carry from one of those laps on each of the shingles up to the eave area, or did you get embers and kind of the preheating of the flame down below that ignited that under eave area?
It is flames burning up the wall. You notice that it doesn't necessarily burn everywhere, but it was burning sort of to the right-hand side of the gable end vent there in this area. And this is a situation where you do have trapping of heat in this under eave area, more rapid ignition and transition to flaming, and then a much quicker lateral spread both down and up. It is sort of a combination of factors that resulted in flames that you see everywhere along this right-hand side of that ridge.
So if you had non-combustible siding there, so a hardy plank siding, for example, or stucco or something like that, could you still get the under eave area ignited if it was, if you had a long enough duration flame at the base of the wall, for example, in some kind of vegetation or fencing or something?
If you had a fuel that resulted in tall enough flame, I think if you just had the ignited bark mulch with non-combustible siding, the under eave area wouldn't be the problem. It may be a problem to the window, but it wouldn't be a problem to the under eave area in this particular scenario. If you had a wood pile there or a lot of shrubby type vegetation, it could be a different story. The easiest solution, easy to say anyway, is this use of this non-combustible zone that we've been talking about over the course of these video series. So to summarize what we've just been talking about, soffitted eaves are less vulnerable both to flames and embers. If you have an open eave design, seal those cracks with a good durable caulk that would minimize the chance for embers to accumulate in those crack areas between blocking and rafter. And that would be taking care of a large part of the problem. If you have open eave design, remember, particularly if you have combustible siding, to replace those vents with the flame and ember resistant type. If you go to the State Fire Marshal's site, to the Building Materials Listing Program part of the State Fire Marshal's site in California, you can search for vents that comply in the state, and there are a number of them. There's 4, I think, vents now that comply in the state. Definitely 3 of them are particularly meant for this under eave area. So
those new vents come in all shapes and sizes. So depending on what kind of venting system you have in your under eave area, there really is something that will work for each of those scenarios. So great adaptations and evolution in materials these days that can help out quite a bit.